Tantor Audio presents Sweet Sofie by Elizabeth Reyes. Narrated by Tanya Eby. Chapter 1. Brandon. Age 10. "You're not the boss of me," Sofia glared at her brother. "Sofie, you're gonna get hurt," Alex warned. "Nah, she's got it." Eric was always on Sofia's side, as much as her brothers would let him be anyway. All morning they had been taking turns jumping off a ramp with their bikes in the middle of the street. As usual, Sofia was the only girl. She watched as Eric knelt down and adjusted the height on the ramp, lowering it a bit. "I can jump as high as you guys," Sofia protested. "No." Angel shook his head. "Lower it, Eric." Sofia sat on the bike, frowning. "No fair." Sal watched from where he was standing on his bike. "That's high enough, Soph." She'd jumped off the ramp before, but only a few times when her brothers hadn't been around. Eric had seen her once and said she was pretty good. Her brothers never let her do anything. If it weren't for Eric, she knew she wouldn't even be jumping right now. "All right, go for it," Eric smiled. Sofia rode down the street, turned around, and stopped. The apprehension in her brothers' faces irritated her. Sal was the oldest at 14, Alex 12, Angel 11. She was the only girl in her family and the youngest at 10. They all stood there on the side of the street. Eric and Romero also watched her closely. "Be careful," Sal yelled. Eric smiled at her, and she smiled back. Eric Diego lived up the street and was Angel's age. He'd been one of her brother's best friends for as long as she could remember. Sofia had always been drawn to him, but recently she'd developed a secret crush on him. He always helped her get around her brothers, and had become such a sweetheart lately, not to mention he was slowly becoming what she and her friends like to refer to as a hottie. "Yeah, and hurry up, 'cause I'm next." Romero rode his bike in slow circles, waiting his turn. Ramon Romero was her brother's other best friend. He, Angel, and Eric were the same age. For as long as they'd known him, he'd gone by his last name. He lived further down the street that crossed their cul-de-sac, but on the same block. Sofia began to pedal and stood up to get more speed, determined to show her brothers she could do it. The bike flew up and over the ramp, and she turned the front tire to the side as she landed for a dramatic skidding stop. More impressive than she had expected, she smiled triumphantly. "You see?" She looked at Alex. Alex still had that same look of disapproval on his face. Sofia frowned at that. "That was cool, Soph," Eric said. "Maybe next time we can lift the ramp a little." "No," Alex said quickly. "That's high enough for her." "Not for me, though." Romero adjusted the height to make it higher. "That's way too high," Angel said, looking at the amount of bricks Romero put under the plywood ramp. "You don't know about this." Romero continued stacking them higher. "Are you nuts?" Eric asked. "That's not going to take the weight of your bike. It's too high." Romero winked. "I am the master." "Oh, I gotta see this." Sal leaned his elbows on his handlebars. Romero finished and smiled, pleased with his work. He got on his bike and rode up the street. Alex and Angel stood on their bikes next to each other, smirking. "He's gonna eat it," Eric chuckled. Sofia rode over to stand next to Eric and Angel. Eric looked at the ridiculously high ramp and shook his head. "You think he can do it?" Sofia asked. "Hell no," Eric said. Romero started toward the ramp, picking up speed fast. He pumped his fist in the air, making the guys laugh. Sofia held her breath. The front wheels started up the wooden ramp, but before it hit the top, the ramp cracked and the front tire hit the brick, sending Romero off his seat and onto the bar between the seat and the handlebars. Hard. He crashed onto the concrete, bouncing once before coming to a complete stop. They all burst into laughter, but at the same time the guys winced at the sight of Romero rolling around on the ground. "Ah, my nuts!" He clutched his crotch. Nobody rushed to his aid. Instead, they stood there, laughing out of control. Alex finally walked over to examine the cracked ramp. "You broke my ramp, ass!" Romero could only groan. Sofia got off her bike and walked over to him. "Are you okay?" Romero, who had both eyes squeezed shut, opened one to look at her. "You're kidding me, right?" Still laughing, Sal rode toward Romero. "You want some ice?" Eric bent over and helped Romero up. "Thanks for that, man," he laughed. Romero stood there, blatantly holding his crotch with an expression of sheer agony. Sofia looked away. She'd seen her own brothers do that plenty of times when they went overboard with the horseplay. Someone would inevitably get a knee or elbow to the crotch. But watching Romero do it felt weird. They all looked up when a car raced by on the street that crossed the cul-de-sac. Not a second later, they saw a police car race by and heard the siren turn on. Tires squealed and skidded, and another police car raced by. A thunderous crash followed around the corner. They all looked at each other wide-eyed. "Holy shit!" Angel began pedaling. Romero limped quickly to his bike, and Sal took off behind Angel. They all started toward the corner. "Sofia, you stay here," Sal yelled over his shoulder. "No," Sofia whined. "Yeah, Soph, it might be dangerous." Alex was even sterner than Sal. "I want to see what happened, too." "No, Soph," Alex repeated. "Stay here." Eric looked at her sympathetically, but followed Angel anyway. She slowed down, pouting. Angry tears filled her eyes, but she knew better than to disobey her brothers. Though her mom came to her aid at times, their father had laid it on heavily from the time they were just kids. If anything happened to Sofia, they'd all be in major trouble. Her brothers, but most notably Alex, who had the shortest fuse, took it very seriously. The older they got, the fiercer their protective natures became. She waited until they were around the corner and started up slowly again toward the corner. She stopped when she turned the corner but couldn't see anything. The car had crashed around the block. People began to come out of their homes because of the commotion. She inched along, walking her bike. The door of the house she stood in front of opened up. Brandon Billings walked out and onto his porch. He was Alex's age, but had been held back a year, so he was still in grade school with Sofia and Angel. He almost never came out, and Sofia had always thought of him as kind of creepy. Part of the reason why he never came out was he didn't have many friends. Her brothers and their friends all referred to him as Bad News Billings. Sofia glanced at him. "What are you looking at?" he sneered. Sofia stuck her tongue out at him but didn't respond. She continued to look up the street. Brandon turned his attention also and saw the people on their porches and front lawns. "What's going on? What's everyone looking at?" Sofia stared straight ahead. "The police chased a car around the corner and I heard it crash." Brandon's eyes opened wide. "Really? So how come you're not over there?" He jumped off his porch and walked toward her. "Don't you want to see what happened?" Sofia shrugged. "Well, then let me use your bike so I can go see." Sofia turned and frowned. "No, use your own bike." "Come on." He grabbed one of her handlebars. "It'll take too long to get mine. I'll be right back." "No." She tried to pull her bike back, but he held on. "Let go, Brandon. Why don't you just walk?" "Around the block?" "Yeah, lazy." She attempted to pull her bike again, but he held on firmly, now standing in front of her with both hands gripping the handlebars. Sofia pulled hard, glaring at him before she saw Alex ride up behind him and jump off his bike. "Get away from my sister!" He pushed Brandon hard, nearly knocking him off his feet. "She was gonna lend me her bike." "No, I wasn't," Sofia squealed. "He was trying to take it." Alex glared at him and pushed him again even harder. "You gonna take my sister's bike?" "No." Brandon stumbled back but managed to stay on his feet. The other guys rode up on their bikes. Angel and Sal jumped off their bikes immediately. "What's going on?" Sal asked, walking up behind Alex. "He was trying to take my bike," Sofia answered. At Sal's glare, Brandon turned around and ran up the steps of his porch. "Yeah, you better run, Billings," Angel yelled. Brandon hurried in his house and closed the screen door behind him. "I wasn't trying to take no girl bike." "You gotta come out sometime," Sal smirked. "And when you do," Alex cracked his knuckles, "I'm gonna kick your ass." Brandon closed the wooden door. Sal turned to Sofia. "Are you okay?" "Did he touch you?" Angel asked. "I'm okay," Sofia said, and then glanced at Angel. "No, he didn't touch me." Romero picked up a rock and threw it at the screen door. "Asshole!" They all got on their bikes and started toward the house. "You shouldn't have been over here, Soph," Alex said and started pedaling. "We told you to stay." Sofia rolled her eyes. "I wanted to see. So what happened?" "The guy that was trying to get away crashed into a parked car, and they arrested him," Eric said, riding next to Sofia. Sofia opened her eyes wide. "Was he hurt?" "Nah, the crash sounded a lot worse than it looked." Alex rode over to the broken ramp. "You had to get stupid about it." He looked at Romero. The guys started laughing again, remembering Romero's spill. Romero frowned and rubbed his crotch. "I think I bruised my nuts." "Easy." Sal frowned at him and then glanced back at Sofia. Sofia didn't say anything but felt a little awkward. She got off her bike, leaving it on the driveway, and walked in the house. They could talk about bruised nuts or whatever they wanted to now. She was thirsty. Pouring the juice in her cup, she thought of her brothers. Brandon had it coming. It had been building for some time now. She could hardly believe how stupid he was to continue to be a jerk. She cringed at the thought of what would happen if her brothers ever got hold of him. A few days later at school, Mrs. Sanders tapped the pointer she had in her hand against her desk loudly. "Mr. Diego, can you come back to Earth?" Eric turned to his 6th grade teacher, feeling his face redden as some of the other kids giggled. He'd been busy staring out the window. Sofia and a couple of girls were on the playground. He'd seen Brandon hanging around not too far from them. Brandon looked like he was up to no good. "I asked you to read the next paragraph," Mrs. Sanders snapped. Eric glanced down at his book. He hadn't the slightest idea what page they were on, much less which paragraph. He glanced up at Romero, who sat across from him, for help. "Page 8, Romero whispered. Eric turned the page quickly. He'd been way off, in the 20s, and then looked at Romero again. "3rd paragraph." "Mr. Romero, are you talking again?" Mrs. Sanders raised her voice. "No, ma'am." He turned back and shot Eric a look. Eric struggled not to smile. "Am I hearing things, then?" Mrs. Sanders pressed. Romero shook his head and glared at Eric, who was shaking his head disapprovingly. Eric started reading and quickly realized he'd been had. He was on the wrong page. Romero chuckled when the teacher told Eric he wasn't even on the right chapter. "Is something funny, Mr. Romero?" Romero had a bad case of the giggles by now and couldn't even answer her. He looked down at his book, biting his lip, and shook his head. When Eric saw Romero was unable to control his laughter, he started chuckling also. "All right, I've had enough of you two," she snapped. "You can both go see Mrs. Powell right now." Even then Romero was still laughing. Eric didn't even want to look at him. He'd managed to stop laughing. Making the mistake of glancing up at Romero's stupid face, he cracked up again. "Take your things with you because I'm asking her to keep you for the rest of the day." When they walked out the door, Eric frowned at Romero and pushed him. "You're stupid." Romero laughed. "You're the one." Man, I'm gonna be so busted when I get home. Eric shook his head. Not as busted as Angel. Eric looked at him confused, and then turned in the direction Romero was staring. There were 2 teachers trying to pull Angel off Brandon on the playground. Angel was furious and continued to try to kick Brandon. Brandon lay there on the ground with his hands over his face. Sofia stood off to the side, close to tears. Eric and Romero ran toward the crowd. I told you not to mess with my sister, Angel yelled. That's enough, Mr. Manning, the playground proctor, warned. He was finally able to pull Angel away. Brandon had a bloody nose and a fat lip. Eric turned to Sofia. What happened? He pulled my skirt up. Eric frowned, suddenly glad Angel had kicked Brandon's ass. He glared at Brandon, wishing he could have a shot at him too. They walked Angel away. Eric and Romero followed. They'd been sent to the principal's office and knew that was where Angel was headed. Eric looked back at Brandon, who was now on his feet, crying as the other teacher checked his face. He glanced over at Sofia, who stood there and watched as they took Angel away. Something tugged at his heart when he noticed her quivering lip. The walk home could not have been any more somber. Angel didn't walk with them like he usually did. He'd been suspended and sent home. Eric and Romero were both looking at an entire week of detention. Sofia was the only one not in trouble, but you wouldn't know it by looking at her. The look on her face said it all. She felt terrible about Angel getting in trouble because of her. They reached Romero's house first, and he went in. Sofia and Eric continued down the sidewalk. Eric looked at her. Her eyes were red-rimmed and welled up with tears. Suddenly he felt panicked. He wasn't used to dealing with girls crying, and something about seeing Sofia cry made it worse. Don't cry, Sofie, he almost begged. Angel's gonna be okay. My dad's gonna be so mad. This is the second fight he's gotten into. Yeah, but the first one wasn't his fault, remember? Even the principal said so. However, with their school's zero-tolerance policy, he'd been suspended anyway. They reached Eric's house, but he kept walking with Sofia. You coming over? She asked. 'Cause I'm pretty sure Angel's not going to be able to come out today. I know. I just want to walk you all the way home. Sofia smiled weakly and wiped her eyes. She looked so sad, her cheeks all flushed and wet. Eric felt like hugging her. He pressed his lips together hard. That damn Brandon. He didn't quite understand it at the time. He'd always seen Sofia as his best friend's chubby little sister. He'd felt just as protective as her brothers did when anyone messed with her. But lately, he'd felt a different connection with her. She seemed to turn to him a lot now to help her out when her brothers were being too domineering. And for some reason, he liked it. Chapter 2. The Wonder Years. Age 13. Ever since the boys had moved on to high school, things had been different. Sofia finally had some freedom. A good thing, too, because now that she'd lost a few pounds, boys were beginning to notice her. She could actually have a conversation with them during lunch without worrying about one of her brothers breathing down their necks. Even Romero, but mostly Eric, had gotten in on the big brother act as if 3 brothers weren't enough. Everything at home remained the same. Her brothers' overbearing natures hadn't changed at all. With them feeding off her dad's old-school mentality about the importance of the older brother role, their interferences began to reach new heights. Sofia waited for Angel to leave the kitchen before asking her mom about the after-school dance that Friday. Her mom chopped onions while Sofia helped with the guacamole. She glanced back to make sure Angel had walked out. They're having a Valentine's dance this Friday after school. It's just a 2-hour thing. I was thinking of going. Is that okay? Her mom turned to her and smiled. Did someone ask you to the dance? Sofia shook her head. They weren't noticing her that much yet, but someone had asked if she would be there. No, it's just going to be me and Trisha and some of the other girls from the running team. I don't see why not. Her mom rinsed her hands in the sink. Alex walked into the kitchen and opened the refrigerator. Sofia pressed her lips together, willing her mom not to say anything about the dance in front of him, but all her mental efforts were in vain. Are you going to wear anything special to the dance, or is it just casual? Sofia kept her eyes on the avocado she mashed in the bowl, but from the corner of her eye, she saw they had Alex's attention. What dance? The Valentine's dance at Sofia's school, her mother said matter-of-factly. Alex made a face. You going to the dance, Soph? With who? Trying her hardest to hide the attitude, Sofia didn't bother looking at him. With my friends. What friends? Alex pressed. She turned around, no longer able to conceal her agitation. Trisha and some of the other girls, Alex. Alex frowned. School dances are lame, Soph. Sofia rolled her eyes, adding salt to the guacamole. Well, I've never been to one. I just want to try it. Do you mind? Maybe I do. Alex, go throw the trash out and tell your brothers it's time for dinner, her mother said, dumping the onion she'd been chopping into the guacamole. Alex grabbed the trash can and headed out the kitchen door. Sofia, never mind your brother. Let me know if we need to get you anything to wear. You go and have a good time. She kissed Sofia on the head. Just be sure you come straight home after. Sofia smiled. Finally, her chance to mingle with boys, and her brothers wouldn't be anywhere around. Eric waited with Alex, Angel, and Romero outside Kennedy Middle School. He wasn't sure what to expect when Sofia walked out, but he was glad Alex and Angel were there. Any guy she might be with wouldn't stick around for long after seeing them. Everyone knew about her older brothers, part of the reason he'd never had to worry about seeing Sofie with a boy. Over the years, Eric's affection for Sofia had taken a bit of a scary turn. It had gone from being brotherly to thinking of her in ways he knew he shouldn't. It didn't help that she was blossoming at an alarming rate. Most of her baby fat was gone, but she had more curves now than most of the girls Eric's age. The nerves he'd begun to feel around her now were partly due to his attraction and partly from the fear of one of her brothers, especially Alex, noticing the way his eyes would involuntarily wander. Kids began spilling out of the front gate. Angel circled around in the street on his bike. Something caught Alex's attention. Is that Asia? Eric followed Alex's stare. Yeah, that's her. Damn, Alex smiled. Hard to believe she's only in the 8th grade. Asia, one of the girls who had grown up with them on the same street, had moved several blocks away last year. She wore a miniskirt with boots that went to her knees. Her tight blouse and low neckline showed just how much she'd grown up in just 1 year. Angel stopped his bike and watched as she crossed the street. That's Asia? Yup, Eric nodded. Romero circled around Eric. What's the big deal? Just as he was going to pass by Alex, he added, Yeah, she's filled out pretty well for an 8th grader, but she ain't got nothing on Sofie. Alex kicked Romero's tire, causing him to lose his balance for a second. Don't be stupid, ass. Sofie doesn't dress like that. Eric laughed and watched as Romero nearly lost it, but recovered at the last second. I didn't say she did. I just meant... Alex glared at him. Romero frowned. Never mind. Yeah, never mind. Alex muttered something else, and Eric couldn't help chuckling. Romero would never learn. Sofia walked in a group of 4, but the fact that her 2 girlfriends were in front and she was behind them with a boy wiped the smile right off his face. She also wore boots to her knees, but with jeans, not a skirt. Her long straightened hair made her look older. There she is. Angel started toward her. I'll go get her. Eric waited with Alex and Romero. There was no hiding her annoyance as she realized they were all there waiting for her. Angel rode right up to her. She said something to him, then something to the boy, before climbing on Angel's handlebars. Eric smiled. This was precisely what he was counting on. When they were close enough, Eric saw how annoyed Sofia really was. She looked right at Alex. "Mom did not say I had to walk home with you guys. All she said was to come straight home."
"We'll take you straight home, Soph."
Alex grinned. They were all on the move now. She rolled her eyes.
"Is that your boyfriend, Soph?" Romero asked.
Before she could answer, Alex drove his bike into the back wheel of Romero's bike. Again, Romero almost lost it. "Come on!" Romero yelled, barely able to recover before hitting a tree. Sofia and Eric exchanged glances. Then she huffed, "Of course not. Like I'll ever have a boyfriend with you guys always around."
"Good," Alex said.
Eric smiled. His thoughts exactly. Age 14. The swing set in their backyard held so many memories. Sofia sat at their backyard picnic table, watching her brothers and her dad take it down. It was bittersweet to see it go, but it had been years since they'd used it for anything else but to sit on. The old rusted thing had become an eyesore. She remembered the time she jumped off the top of the slide, pretending to be Wonder Woman. Her forehead hit a sprinkler Angel had forgotten to put away, and she ended up with 6 stitches. Alex had been livid. At first with Romero for being the one who suggested they jump off in the first place, then with Angel for having left the sprinkler there. Romero and Eric strolled through the back gate of her yard.
"No way."
Romero stared at the piled-up pieces of swing set on the grass.
"Old Nellie's finally seen her last days?"
"Yup," Alex said, throwing a pole on the ground with the rest of the set.
"This thing was falling apart already."
Eric sat down next to Sofia and nudged her.
"You sad?"
Sofia smiled. "Nah, I was just thinking about all the memories we had on that thing."
"Oh, yeah," he chuckled. "Remember when Romero almost hung himself?"
Sofia laughed. Poor Romero. He always learned the hard way. Angel and Romero joined in with more stories about the swing set. In just about every story, Romero didn't fare well. He'd always been the reckless one of the bunch, and he'd paid the price. Once her dad's truck was loaded with all the remains of the swing set, Alex, Sal, and her dad got in with Alex at the wheel. He'd only had his permit for a few weeks and was eager to drive any chance he got. Angel and Romero played catch, and Eric sat with Sofia. He'd been doing that a lot lately.
"I'm gonna see my mom again."
Sofia turned to him. Usually his amazing light brown eyes gleamed when he spoke to her. Right now they seemed troubled. Eric had only met his mom in the past year. She left him and his father when he was just a baby. None of them really knew the story about his mom. All she knew was that he lived with his dad and his mom just wasn't around. That is, until he told her about it a few months earlier, when his mom suddenly showed up. He hadn't even told her brothers, just Sofia. It made her feel special that he'd confide something so personal to her. It meant something. "You are? When?"
"Tonight. She's taking me to dinner. She wants to go to the movies, but I don't know."
Eric turned his attention to Angel and Romero, who tossed the ball around. Sofia knew Eric was still hurt about his mother leaving them. "Why not?"
He shrugged. "Still feels weird. I'll do dinner, but I'm not sure about the movies. We'll see how it goes."
"You nervous?" Eric's eyes were back on her.
"A little, but only about being alone with her. It's uncomfortable."
The ball hit the bench next to Eric and bounced off, rolling near his feet. Eric bent over to pick it up. "You'll be fine," Sofia said as he stood up to throw it. He threw it, then turned back to her and smiled.
"Yeah, I will."
He started to walk off toward Angel and Romero, then turned around.
"Maybe I'll come by after, if it's not too late, and tell you about it."
Sofia smiled. "Okay." The drive home from dinner was quiet and uncomfortable, as was the usual case when Eric spent time with his mom. He asked her to drop him off at Angel's house, Saying he needed to pick something up, he left there early.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?